Well, good morning, Knicks Nation. It is Monday morning. It's a little after 9 o'clock. Believe it or not, I actually do work. I work from home. And if you ever work from home, it does get quite boring sometimes. And I have a meeting in about half an hour. But I thought I'd touch base with you because there's always news about our Knicks. So we talked about um, a couple of videos ago, a few videos, I talked about the free agent possibilities that the Knicks would have, right? And we talked about the players that would fit best in what we're trying to do. And I mentioned that we are looking at we're looking at second tier players. We mentioned Davis Bertans, we mentioned Joe Harris, we mentioned, guys like that, Mook, Gallinari, we mentioned, these are second tier players. That will help us, short term with a few more wins, but it will not interfere with the development of our youth, which is what we're trying to do, develop our youth so that we can pop a couple of these guys into stars over time, believe it or not. And, in spite of the hate that our people have for our own players, talk about Knicks fans, and of course media, the media hates our players until it's time to trade. Then all of a sudden they're worth trading. It's crazy, but that's part of the deal. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I'm doing this particular video is because, as I mentioned to you, and you don't have to be a prophet to know this. All you have to do is know history if you're a Knicks fan. Between seasons, no team has more rumors about players coming to their team than the New York Knicks. That it doesn't matter who the general manager is, who the owner is, who the coach is. No team has more rumors about players coming to their team than the New York Knicks. And like I said, I first experienced this in 1969 with Jabbar. Jabbar was leaving Milwaukee, he's going to come to the Knicks. And ever since then, I've been hearing nothing but Knicks rumors, especially every offseason. This being a really weird offseason in terms of its timing, in terms of its length, you're going to hear a lot more. So let's talk about false messiahs. We already talked about how the Knicks fans have been duped. Yes, we've been duped into thinking we need somebody to save us. Who's going to save the Knicks? The next time you hear some idiot like Max Kellerman or Stephen A. Smith or anybody talk about who's going to save the Knicks, you really should just turn that off right away because it's a ridiculous concept. We don't need a savior. We need good basketball players that's going to build a good basketball team by development. There's no shortcuts. Okay. There's no shortcuts to success. All right. Especially we should know this 20 years of ineptitude from New York trying to get shortcuts. We got the assets. We got the youth. Now we got a development staff. Let's build this thing the right way. Now, that being said, we already have now the whispers of false messiahs. Okay? Already. You see what happens is when a team goes all in to win a championship and it doesn't work out. What they're left with is what the Houston Rockets look like now. What do the Houston Rockets look like? A couple of guys that over the next 3 years are going to get each in James Harden and Russell Westbrook in excess of $130 million, being north of 30 years of age. And they have no cap space to improve. Okay? So now you have a situation where you're going to have several guys, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, of course, we already know about CP3. And then we've already heard rumors, about the trade of Embiid or Simmons. And then there's others that are making big money and their teams invested heavily in them. And for some reason, they didn't reach the promised land. Now they got to start over. And in some cases, they've traded away all their draft picks to get to this point and signed super max contracts. So they got to decide what they're going to do. You're going to hear the Knicks involved with all of these guys. Trade for Harden, trade for Westbrook, trade for CP3 you've already heard. Trade for Embiid, trade for whoever that's overpaid right now, and they're gonna, try to offload their contracts. As I mentioned to you before, we're only interested in improving the Knicks, and not in the short term, but over the long term. We want to develop our young players. We don't want anything to interfere with that. And we know that last year, Steve Mills, for all of his cap saving, and he did a great job at that. In fact, Mark Berman wrote an article in the Post today in which he basically faulted Steve Mills, saying that the New York Knicks might have been interested in obtaining CP3 from Houston, but Steve Mills wanted to focus on the youth, as if it was a bad thing. And he also intimated, Mr. Berman that is, that the reason we stockpiled all of these draft picks is so we can obtain a CP3 that's 100 years old at $40 million a year. See how ridiculous that is? So, while you'll hear all of these rumors, and you're going to hear a lot of them, there is no Messiah that's going to save the Knicks. Okay, remember that. Because you're going to hear a lot of this stuff. A lot of shiny objects going to be placed in front of us. Why? Because now we're like the crackheads. See, I knew a crackhead back in the day, good friend of mine actually. And he was disabled and he would get a check every month, a disability check. He was a young man in his 20s, would get a full disability check every month. Okay. And when that check came, everybody was at his house, man. The people selling the crack, the whores, everybody was there trying to get that money from him because they knew he got it. Well, here's the Knicks, long-term crackheads, and now we got cap space. Everybody's got ideas for our cap space. We need to decide what we're going to do before they get here, okay? Because here comes the long march of false messiahs. So what we want, one of the ground rules I think we should set right away is we not taking nobody unless we getting draft picks. We're not giving up draft picks. We taking draft picks. Okay? We're going to get ourselves in better position. And if we could get a player that could at least help us win some games short term, okay, we should do that. But we really don't want to try to take on $40 million contracts. That's a large piece of our cap position, right? And especially for anything that, like Chris Paul, okay, we might be able to see that. If they're giving up draft picks and we get rid of Randall and we only got him for 2 seasons, and that's really pushing it. That's really pushing it. But 3 years, like a James Harden or Russell Westbrook, 3 years, 40 million. John Wall, you got to pay 130 million over the next 3 years. Nah, that's not good for us, baby. We don't want it. We don't want that. Okay. But today I wanted to introduce you to another proposal. See, for all those that think our players are so bad we can't get rid of them, nobody's interested in them, and we can't improve that way. I've already showed you Minnesota. I've already showed you Charlotte. I've already showed you Utah. I've already showed you Cleveland. I've showed you several teams that would be interested in Julius Randle and or Dennis Smith Jr. and we could get picks. I've already shown you those possibilities. Well, here's another one. Philadelphia 76ers. Yes. Now, unlike the media, think about this. You got 2 players in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons that are in their 20s, mid-20s. And you signed them to max contracts. You gonna get rid of them? For what? For Andrew Wiggins? Are you kidding me? No, they're not gonna do that. No. But they do need to create some flexibility. The reason is because a couple of reasons. Number one, if you look at Philadelphia's 2020-2021 salary, as it stands right now, and this is without any, they have to fill out their roster. So with the players that they have now, they're at 143, wait a minute, let me get this correct. 146.9, almost $147 million in salary. You see, let me explain something to y'all. A team don't mind paying that. Like Golden State, some people brought out, I had Golden State fans say, they don't mind paying $100 million in luxury tax. Well, I could half understand if you're Golden State. You know why? They done won 3 chips and they got the core together to win a couple more. See, that's the goal here. You want to win some chips, right? So, but if you Philly or you Houston or you Oklahoma City and you ain't won a chip and you still owe all this money, What you doing? You understand? What are you doing? Just paying. Okay, so you're Philly. You want to keep Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. You definitely want to keep them because they are on the verge of superstardom. Okay, yeah, they got some. They're not perfect. No, Simmons can't shoot, but he can get to the basket anytime he wants. Pretty much, he's big at point guard at 6'10". Obviously, he can get you triple doubles. He can set up the team from the point guard position. Okay, and of course, there's Embiid, who tries really hard during the course of a game, but he doesn't seem to understand, that next level of effort that a superstar needs to take to carry his team. But I think there's still opportunity to teach him that. Okay? And so I wouldn't give up on these two guys. No, not at all. And then you got some good young players like Josh Richardson, who you got from Miami when Jimmy Butler was leaving. You don't want to lose these guys. And you can't really do anything with Tobias Harris. He's relatively he's still in his prime. And he's owed, for the next 4 years, something like 36 million per. I don't think so. I mean, unless somebody really believes Tobias Harris is a long-term answer. To me, he complements those other two guys pretty good. But then they got Al Horford. They overpaid Al Horford. Okay, they overpaid him. And if you watch the Philadelphia games, Al Horford just didn't fit. It just didn't fit. Okay, I don't know if it's because the coach didn't know how to properly use him, or because, maybe because he's older, maybe he's lost a step, because he might be washed up. I don't think he's washed up, but he keeps himself in really good shape. But he might have been misused, and now you got $146 million in salary. So you got to lighten that load because at $132 million is the luxury tax. So if you could get to $132 million and keep your team, you might want to think about that. Now, why would we, the Knicks, want to have anything to do with Philly? Let me explain. Philadelphia has 4 second-round picks and a first-round pick at number 21, I think it is. Is it 21? Let's take a look here. Philadelphia has 4 second-round picks, and they got a 21st pick from Oklahoma City. Look at that. So, I think we can abscond with some draft picks here. So, I'm saying Al Horford. And listen, I know some of y'all would say, listen, this is where the unrealistic Knicks fans go. I love y'all. But listen, somebody would say, Al Horford and Matisse Thybulle. Yeah, we're going to take them. Listen, man. You Philadelphia, you got to think from Philly's perspective. They are not giving up Matisse Thybulle. They're not doing that. I wouldn't. That'd be stupid. Okay? He's a young player. And actually, I'm thinking if they trade Al Horford, they can start Matisse Thybulle at the 3 and move Tobias Harris to the 4, and they can have more speed in their lineup. See, that's what I'm thinking in the starting lineup. If it was me, right? 'Cause I'm trying to think from both sides here. See, as Knicks fans, we don't understand how desperate some other teams are and what they're looking for versus how desperate we are and what we're looking for. Okay. Now, we always want a win-win because the Knicks always got to win. That's what all these videos I do. Knicks got to win. And if it's a win-loss, the W got to go for us and the L got to go to them. We done took enough L's. Okay. That's the deal. Some of y'all Philly fans or Golden State fans or whatever. I don't like this for my team. Okay, fine. I'm looking at it from the Knicks perspective. But realistically, they're not giving up Matisse Thybulle. But they got another prospect that has suffered from the Philly curse that has some talent. Zaire Smith. He has some talent. I like Zaire Smith coming out of Texas Tech. I liked him. If you look at some of his videos, solid player, role player, but fundamentally sound, jumps through the roof, can play on the wing. Okay. And he suffered the Philly curse. Almost every first round pick they get gets hurt. It's crazy, but that's what happens. I mean, it's for like, Noel, Embiid, Simmons, and Smith. All these guys missed like their first year with injuries. It's like a curse on Philly or something. So let's save that boy from that curse. Anyway, let's say Al Horford at $27.5 million and Zaire Smith at 3.2. That's $30 million, almost $31 million. And of course, we send them our boy Randall, who can be the 4th option on that team. That's what he would be. Coming off the bench, he could be the backup 5 to Embiid and the backup 4 to Tobias Harris. And we've already discussed the fact that our boy Randall would probably prosper in a role like that. He's not the first option, obviously. We see that that's the disaster. But in Philly, he ain't even gonna believe, because, you know, in between Embiid and Simmons, they're gonna let him know whose team it is. And then you got Tobias Harris. So he's a fourth option, third option, second unit guy. You send him over there, and guess what happens? First off, their luxury tax bill disappears because they're trading $31 million, right, for $19 million. They're knocking it down by $12 million, right? So now they have like 134. They're like $2 million from the luxury tax. They can fix that. That's their problem. They can fix that. But what do we get? We take Al Horford, who now becomes our starting 4. He's 34 years old. We got 2 years on the contract, but now you're grooming our boy Knox behind him. Okay. And what are we looking for? This deal only makes sense to me if we end up with their 21st pick and one of their second rounders. Now they got a 34th second rounder. I'd be asking for that. If I don't get that, I want the 36. They also got, some lower. They got a 49 and like a 50 something second rounder. They got a 58th and a 49 pick second rounder. Okay. But I want the 34th or the 36th, and I want their number 1. Okay. So we take Al Horford off their hands. We reduce their tax bill. We give them Julius Randle, who's a good backup, frees Tobias Harris to be the 4th spot right there. And they only got 1 year of Julius Randle's contract, right? And then we get 2 more picks. Okay. And I think at that point, so we would have, in this scenario, we would end up with the 8th pick, the 21st pick, the 27th pick, let's say the 36th pick, and the 38th pick. 5 picks. And that's it. I'd sit pat after that. I'd be done. I wouldn't be talking to Utah no more. I wouldn't need Phoenix. I wouldn't need Minnesota. I wouldn't talk to anybody now. We're done. Now we just draft these guys and move forward. Okay. That's what we do. We draft these guys and move forward. What y'all think? So I'm thinking, so let's just review this deal again for those watching the video to the end, which I'm finding a lot of y'all don't. So we're taking on Al Horford and Zaire Smith. We're giving them Julius Randle. And for taking on Al Horford, 34-year-old Al Horford, we are getting back the 21st pick and either the 34th or 36th pick from Philadelphia. What y'all think about that? I think that's a fair deal. They end up reducing their tax burden. They get a player that fits better with what they're doing right now, and opens up more for Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle, who are their promising player, or Matisse Thybulle is a promising young player, a defender, a good defender. So they end up with a starting 5 of Tobias Harris, Embiid, Thybulle, Richardson, and Simmons. And that's a tremendous defensive team right there. That's a tremendous defensive team. Plus, they got some decent offensive players there too, in Richardson, Embiid, and Tobias Harris. So they end up in a pretty good position. And then, they got all these picks. What they going to do with all these picks? They already got their players. They don't need any more players. They need to really work with what they have and refine it. So now it reduces their tax bill. They get a guy that fits with their system, and they lose a guy they overpaid for. What do we get? We get a veteran at the 4. He's like a 36 career 3-point shooter, 35, 36. He's always between 35 and 40. Last 4 years, Al Horford. So he shoots the 3 very well. He's not exactly a sharpshooter, but he's a good defensive player, good rebounder. He's a 2-way player. Okay. And of course, he's a veteran. He knows how to play this game. It's going to help our boy Knox. Okay. We grooming Knox. Okay. We're not forgetting about our boy Kev. We grooming him. Okay. And now we got that. Now go ahead and go in this draft with 5 picks. We got 5 picks. Now we're going to get 5 good players. We're going to get some good players. Okay. Somebody's going to pop. Between all of the youth that we now have and what we would get in this draft, we got the foundation to build our house. What do y'all think?